My name is Alex Epstein. I'm a philosopher, energy expert, and most recently author of this book, Fossil Future. And there was a decent sized debate challenge yesterday that I think got the Bitcoin community pretty excited. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background on how I think about debate challenges, my policy, etc. So the specific one was by somebody named Margot, I think Pays, but goes by the pseudonym Jin Urso. And I hadn't heard of her before, but she said, okay, I'm challenging Alex Epstein. Many of us disagree with his slick climate denial thesis. What do you say, Alex? And I said immediately, okay, I'm happy to debate it. The proposition that is really up for debate in the culture today, the world should rapidly eliminate fossil fuel use to prevent climate catastrophe. But then I qualified, not to be rude, but I'm not sure the organizers will think you're a great opponent. Your climate denial smear shows sloppy thinking and or bad character. So let me just explain when I'm talking about, because later she said, oh, you're supposed to debate anyone anytime. And a while back, I sort of publicly explained my debate policy, and the goal of the policy is for any valid challenge to my views to come up. I've been trying to debate people aggressively for over 10 years. The problem is not me not debating. It's prominent people on the other side not debating. So a while back, I put this out. I guess it was a year ago now. And I just explained this, and people got so pissed. But I think this policy makes a lot of sense. So I'll debate anyone on energy or climate issues, provided that just one of these two conditions are met. So one is there's a forum that will host it, usually an online forum, that has an expected 100,000 views or more. Or if you don't have that, if it's just a regular event, I do speaking, I do paid speaking. That's part of my life, part of my business. If a forum wants to host me and anyone else, they can host anyone they want and I'll debate them as long as there's a real debate there. And so the goal here is anyone legitimate gets an opportunity, because if your views are really interesting, you should be able to find somebody with a big platform to host the debate, but it doesn't let random people waste my time. And so what's happened over the past few years is I've worked really, really hard to get some prominent people to debate me. It's really hard to do it. You wouldn't believe what organizations that try to make this happen have to go through. The last one that tried to put one on, the Steamboat Institute, it took them, I think they had to go through 20 people. All sorts of people turned them down that are very courageous online against me. I won't go into those names unless they attack me more, in which case I will. But I ended up debating this guy, Andrew Dessler, who's a prominent climate scientist and activist. We debated at Steamboat Springs in Colorado. And then in November, I'm debating at University of Texas at Austin. I believe it's November 3rd. And John Dodgett, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing his name correctly. So we're having a debate on basically net zero by 2050. So great. I try to find these whenever I can. But the organizer has to really want to put it on. And so with this particular one, I suspected that this person, what's the name? Jin Urso, I'll just go by that pseudonym, people would not be very interested. Because it's just the way she was characterizing my views was just a climate denier. That's like a very first grade attempt to attack my views. So I asked, hey, could you point out like what you've written about these issues that's substantive? And so then she gave me, let's see, what did she find? Well, she called it a smear. She said, it's not a smear to call me a climate denier, but she didn't explain that. Okay, and then she gave me these two links. Okay, so she didn't give me specific articles, but she gave me links. Okay, this is something very, very technical. It's not about the broader issue of fossil fuels or climate, which was what I was asking about, because that's what we would debate. And so I looked through, and then she gave this Medium thing, and I searched that, and I finally found something that had something to do with this issue. But I didn't have very high expectations based on the way this started. But this is pretty crazy what I found here, just scanning it. I mean, there are a bunch of errors, but so it says roughly 2/3 of California's energy production is renewable. So if you know anything about energy, you know that's completely impossible. So energy production includes electricity, which is a fraction of energy use and production, but it includes other things like oil production. So I immediately knew, okay, there's a very basic error here of equating energy with electricity, which is something you never do if you know anything about this field. But then I thought roughly 2/3, that's not true. It's not 2/3 renewable as California classifies it. And just to make sure I wasn't insane and missing something, I looked at this. I looked at California's data, 2021, and guess what? It says total renewables, 34.8%, total thermal and non-renewables, 65.2%, and 50% natural gas alone. So I was thinking, like, what is going on here, how can this person, and this was published in 2021 and nobody caught this. So what kind of intellectual environment are you living in where you can make an energy electricity conflation and you just get something totally wrong? So I looked at it. I looked at the link and it says new data shows nearly 2/3 of California's electricity came from carbon-free sources in 2019. But carbon-free is a totally different term than renewable. So we have somebody who uses the terms energy, electricity interchangeably, non-carbon and renewable interchangeably. Like, this is just total hack stuff. So yeah, I can really understand why someone would want to host this. And so Corey, I think Clipston is his last name, the host of this event. So this is an event that's already booked me to speak. They've already agreed to my terms. So, you know, if they want to allocate the time, I said, I'm happy to do this. But he said, okay, I'd love to read a critique of Alex's book if you're game to write one. And it didn't. And then she says, no, if I were to write a critique of Epstein's work, then this would give him an unfair advantage in the debate. I've listened to multiple debates and read his first book. Interestingly, she hasn't read my book that's come out 8 years later. I understand his views quite well. I require that I be allowed to save my arguments for the debate stage. So I just have to say, this is an alien perspective to me. This perspective might apply. I actually do martial arts. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, I get it if I'm preparing for a fight, which I don't do anymore, and I was never all that good at. I'm very good at debating energy, but not professional jiu-jitsu competition anywhere near that. Anyway, yeah, then you save your moves. But the goal in debate for me is to have the truth go out. And that's why I publish all of my ideas in writing. I put them on Twitter in very detailed form. It's all about just debating things publicly. So if I'm wrong, why don't you just refute me publicly instead of you need to get this stage and you can't say anything about what you believe because that's going to embarrass me? Like, this is ridiculous. This should be about the truth. And then Corey responded, this makes total sense. They're on different levels, which if you saw what she wrote about energy, that is a big understatement. This is a challenger who's asking to be kind of foisted into this event that she wasn't invited to. They weren't interested in. If we did it, as I said earlier, it'd have to take, I said in writing, I don't know if you caught it, it'd have to take like 2 hours, like to do a real debate. So I can see why they wouldn't want to do it. So if they want to do it, that's fine. I'll do it as long as we have the debate topic and the time. I mean, I don't think it's the best use of people's time. I don't think it sends a good message to send to somebody who's like I don't want to be too mean about it, but this is really amateur hour if you bring this person in. And for people who are going to respond, oh, you just have a BA in philosophy from Duke. Well, yeah, that was 20 years ago. That's the degree I happened to get at Duke University. But I spent the last 15 years becoming one of the world's leading energy experts. And I wrote arguably the best book in the world on energy, which is extensively referenced and which nobody has been able to refute in 3 months. This is why people want to invite me to places. So I hope that addresses the Jin Urso thing. And if you hear like, oh, he's afraid and stuff, again, I'll debate anyone as long as my terms are met. Now, there's just one more, by the way, I want to address quickly. There's this guy who trolls my comments named Gerald Cutney. Basically, everything I write, all he says is like, you're not a scientist, you're ignorant. So I wrote this very true point about 1.5 degrees C doesn't mean from now. It means from pre-industrial times. And he's just like, your ignorance is dangerous. Oh, that's so formidable. And then he's like, listen to the science, not the oil apologist. So I wrote this thread that's incredibly detailed, incredibly referenced. This is all he does. So, okay, again, like he doesn't know anything. It's just a troll who does this. It's not based on science, blah, 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 blah. Then he said something about I deleted tweets about Joe Manchin. I do not delete tweets unless it's just an obvious error. So this is just a lie, which let's see if he retracts that. And then he says, basically telling Sean Ryan, the prominent host, hey, you won't have Alex on, like, you're afraid, Alex is afraid. I didn't even see this until a while ago, but I assume, I don't want to speak for Sean, but I assume what's going, and he can't even spell Yoo-hoo correctly, by the way. Like, I assume what's going on is Sean has seen this guy as a buffoon and doesn't want to give him a platform. And that makes total sense. So, if you want to debate me, find somebody with 100,000 or more viewers to host it, and I will debate you. It's not a good idea if you're this kind of person, but I'm happy to do it. And if you really want to get a sense of my ideas, go to Twitter, look at my pinned tweet. If you watch this, you're going to see my views are a different level, and that's why nobody prominent will debate me.